Hey everybody, our guest today is Kris Pilcher from the Dream Collection Agency. I had the pleasure of meeting Kris at the National Arts Club NYVR event we had called Art in VR, where he was demonstrating virtual reality experiences based on the dreams that people had. So without further ado, here's Kris.
Hi.
Hey, Kris, thanks for joining us. Dream science is one of the most interesting fields I can think of. Sleep and dreaming has always been fascinating to me because it also seems hard, one of the hardest things to study.
It's a very interesting field because everything that happens in our dreams happens when we're asleep, right? So it's very hard to have first-hand accounts and first-hand experimentation.
I'm actually coming at the project as an artist, which is sort of how it began as a performance art piece that's since developed into this more scientific research project that's now involving XR.
And how long was this whole thing going on for? How many dreams are collected and how many have been turned into three-dimensional? From what I understand, they're all three-dimensional models, right?
Correct. Yeah, we are creating dreams in virtual reality and augmented reality with an eye towards putting them on AR headsets in the future, such as Magic Leap and HoloLens. To date, we've collected around 2,000 dreams from all over the world, and we do that in two ways. We have a telephone number, which is 267-53-AWAKE. Anyone can give us a call there 24 hours a day and donate their dreams. And then we also have a portal on our website. And whenever we do these pop-up experiences like we did at New York VR, we bring along evaluation forms so we can collect some data on site. And a lot of times, you know, it's a lot more interesting to do that personally because I can speak to people one-on-one about their dream experiences. We have recreated approximately 20 dreams at this point. As you guys know, like the VR development process takes a moment. So.
Do you guys have frequent folks who submit dreams on a regular basis so you can construct a model around their particular mind and point of view and experiences that they've had, or is it pretty much every person has one dream?
We actually do have people who have contributed an entire series of dreams. There's one person in particular who has given us their entire series of dream journals that they've kept over the years. For the most part, they are one-off donations. The way we have it set up in our database, things are slightly anonymized. So even if someone does contribute multiple dreams, it's sort of difficult for us to trace those back to each other.
Well, certain worlds end up getting created. At least I'm going to take a guess and say that that's what ends up happening. For example, when I dream, there are multiple locations that I end up visiting again based on real-life locations, like the Russian Turkish baths, for example, which if you haven't been, I highly recommend you go there. It's on 10th Street between 1st Avenue and Avenue A. Anyway, I always have versions of this Russian Turkish baths in different configurations, kind of like the bathhouse from Spirited Away. You know, like you have not exactly how it is in real life. Instead of having these baths arranged in a certain manner in the real world, you'd have these vats of water that people would be suspended in, like they're regenerating or stuff like that. And you would have me flying around the locker rooms and interacting with people I meet in real life who have never been to the baths in the first place. So I'm curious if there are certain famous locations that end up getting twisted and distorted in very particular ways that you guys end up reading about.
So geography plays an awful large part in people's dream experiences. In particular, people seem to dream of home as a generalization. So a lot of people's dreams tend to take place in their home, their grandmother's home, just someplace that's familiar. We do try to work that into our dream experiences to create the sense of familiarity with the environment. In a lot of ways, we do that by just making things slightly generic. At least in my experiences in dream states, you're always in a place that's familiar, but you can't quite lay your finger on where it is, right? So if we can create those sorts of generalities, it's of course impossible for us to recreate dreams at this point entirely as the subject saw those dreams. There's a good deal of artistic interpretation involved.
Do you teach people how to lucid dream? I once went on a self-adventure where I tried to work on lucid dreaming. And there was a period of time when I was disciplined about it. I would keep a dream journal, and I was told to look for motifs in my dreams. And one of them was, I noticed like recurring themes in my dreams. One of them was I would be back at high school. If I ever was like dreaming and noticed I was in high school, I would do a reality check. And my reality check was I would hold my nose and cover my mouth. And if I was still breathing, I knew I was dreaming. And that's how I would then sort of like become lucid within the dream. But I would still notice that I was doing this a couple of years ago, that it was hard for me to stay lucid within the dream. Like I would slip in and out of lucidity within the dream. Are those the kinds of things you work on with people in your studies, or is it more of a interpretive dream collection project?
So it is an interpretive project. However, one of our hypotheses from the beginning with this project was that spending an extended amount of time inside of these virtual environments could essentially rewire your brain and make you more susceptible to altered states of consciousness. So that when you do have those lucid dreaming experiences and you reach those deep REM states, you're able to recognize that and then have a bit more control over those situations.
And were there any things that were noted as far as predictions being made? Like all kinds of stories talk about people having a prophetic dream of things that ended up coming true the next day. And I personally also had experiences like that of somebody really close to me. I had a dream of them being strapped to the wing of an airplane as the airplane was taking off. And I was also strapped, but I was at least on the inside. And then I found out that there were some health problems that they thought that they had, and it was a really worrisome time. And later on, we found out everything was okay. But that still was right the day before, and I had no idea any of this was going to happen. Or I had a dream about Harvey Weinstein right before the scandal occurred, and I wasn't thinking of the guy in any other contacts before that. So have you guys had any prophecies that you could store and then find out, oh, this actually happened?
Well, not so far, but that is another hope that we have with our database, is that as we collect more and more dreams and we have these larger data sets, we can then begin to draw parallels between things like natural disasters or like large social upheavals, just tying together those dreams that we've received from certain places and certain times. So doing a lot of this more empirical research with the data is something that we're trying to branch out to in the future.
There is a blue dot random number generator called Global Consciousness Project, where they use some kind of random number generator to determine whether people have certain intentions going on in the world, and it's related to when things happen in the stock market or various things. I'm not sure if I'm making total sense right now as far as what exactly it's called, but it would be good to have see some kind of correlations with any kind of coincidental things happening in these random number generators and certain dreams that people end up having. So this could all be compiled together.
Right. It could also be an extension of the Pygmalion effect, which is where your perception of something can affect its outcome. So perhaps if we are having like these sort of prophetic dreams, we are in fact influencing reality through our dream states.
This is actually a very significant thing, because this is something a lot of people nowadays who have a totally materialist mindset would absolutely dismiss as having nothing to do with our reality. And it's something that, if it was true, I think it would have really big implications as far as how people end up living. Like, we were reading this book called Prometheus and Atlas that was talking about this very thing, where if people are trained in being able to change reality or to perceive whatever other people are thinking about, then patent law and various other things that we hold very tightly as far as this is our security blanket of reality, it's going to go away. Like, from the experiences that you've personally had or known people who have had similar experiences, do you anticipate something like this starting to grow right now as more people are getting interconnected, becoming more interested in it? And what do you personally see as being the ramifications?
Oh, I certainly hope we're headed in that direction. I think we need to peel back the layers of reality, the veil that is separating us from the actual truth, and make that connection to our collective subconscious, because there are some truths right there that are right in front of us and waiting for us to open the door. The implications of that they are completely unbelievable. I don't think any of us can even begin to conceptualize what the implications of that are, because we're so grounded to living in this physical reality that we've anchored ourselves to. I think it's almost a little frightening to think about tearing yourself away from it, right?
Well, that's what dreams in a way do, especially the ones that are really realistic. You're able to have a bit of a taste of what exactly that kind of life would be like. If you're all of a sudden able to fly and teleport and do all this kind of reality-bending stuff, there is a bit of a fear that you have where, like, I don't know if you've ever had flying dreams before, or if Jules has had flying dreams, but there is a bit of an apprehension related to it where I don't want to fly too far. I may fall down.
I don't have that fear in my dreams. Like, for a long time, I haven't had a nightmare for as long as I can remember, but I've definitely had dreams that I've described to people where they're like, that sounds like a nightmare, but I'm in the dream and I'm not feeling fear, right? So for example, I had one dream, this is an old one, where I was falling from space. I was on like a space motorcycle, and then I lost my balance. I fall off, and now I'm just like plummeting to the earth. But the whole time, I'm just sort of like thinking about like the trip on the way down, and I'm steering myself, and then I see a skyscraper. I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to like angle to the skyscraper, and then I kind of slide off the skyscraper, and suddenly I'm just like bouncing around the whole topography of the earth like a pinball.
See, I've had similar dreams with the out of control car. That also seems to be sort of an archetypical thing that people experience. But with my dream experiences, I'm always either in the back seat or in the passenger seat, frantically trying to steer this vehicle, but knowing that there's absolutely no way I can control its acceleration or braking, right? So I'm just essentially steering to no avail. And that always frightens me every time. It's not a nightmare, but it is very anxiety inducing.
Well, the frightening dreams for me seem to be not even in the deep dream world as much as the transitionary period, which is something I recall people writing about who have also taken DMT, and they have these periods very vividly where you are in the dream, and before you are awakened, you seem to go through this. For me, it was a blue tunnel. And eventually, as I went through the blue tunnel, I started seeing these holographic spectral shapes starting to form the reality that I see when I open my eyes. But even before that, there are periods where I feel like I'm sitting in my bed or I'm meditating or whatever, but I'm within the contents of my room. This is absolutely realistic. Yet for some reason, there's just this extreme anxiety that I start feeling. And I think that type of feeling where you're sort of in the midstream between reality and the dream state, some people have described that as being a sleep paralysis, even though I'm not sure if I was exactly paralyzed during that state.
Maybe it's just a transitional period for your consciousness, right? When you're breaking yourselves from the bounds of reality, and then you're going into this other existence, which could be any number of things. It could be a glimpse into the collective subconscious. It could be portals to other dimensions. There's the multi-world theory, Everett Wheeler-Graham hypothesis, that there's an infinite number of realities, and we're just constantly shifting between one and another. I think it could be very traumatic for a consciousness that's grounded in what we call reality to transfer back and forth between the two. It's sort of like coming up on your trip, right? It's always a little bit frightening.
Well, so we've talked about something called transhumanism on this show before, and you mentioned the human to computer, the brain to computer interface. Mm-hmm. So I guess I don't have a question as much as curiosity. I'm wondering, because I heard you mention that what are some of the cutting edge things that you're following regarding dream science or where the technology is trying to take us?
Yeah, there's some cool research teams working on some amazing stuff out there. I know there's some things going on at Columbia and MIT Media Lab with dream imagery and basically being able to visualize your thoughts using brain-computer interfaces. And that, I think, is one of the most exciting things that could ever happen. I'm all for transhumanism. I think it's the next step of human evolution, and we essentially have no choice. We've already started down that pathway. So it's kind of like to use a Star Trek reference, it's going to be like the Borg. We're going to have to assimilate or sort of be left behind. Yeah, I think it's cool. There's research teams working with brain-computer interfaces right now to get real-time neurofeeds and translate that into this blurry imagery that is a little dreamlike at this point. I think when we're able to translate that imagery in real time and then feed it into another person's brain, either through a virtual reality headset or another brain-computer interface, like that's when it's going to get super exciting. When we can network our minds together, that will be when everything I'm talking about is so relevant at that point, because then we're creating new digital realities and dreams can go on infinitely and be anything that you can imagine. And you don't have to learn lucid techniques. You're just in control of them.
Lev has definitely taught me that as much technological developments that we make, there is something to like developing our, like exercising our biological hardware. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like if you constantly rely on a calculator and you can't do mathematics yourself, it's like having someone boost you up every time you do a pull-up and then not being able to do the pull-up yourself. And I think your brain really is like a muscle. And so even though we're at the very early stages of these machine to brain interfaces, these are not the kind of leaps that I would want to make for a very long time. So I don't think that I think there's so much we don't know that it's these kinds of questions and this kind of curiosity and these kinds of studies that really make the future of progress possible. Because also what people understand is how that inspires culture. It inspires musicians, it inspires filmmakers, and then that all contributes to our global consciousness. I think, was it Jung who would talk about like trying to bring your subconscious to the conscious level as much as possible. And I feel like a lot of people, they'll say that they stop having dreams the older they get. I'm not sure if you meet people from time to time who say, yeah, I don't dream anymore, or I can't remember the last time I had a dream. And I wonder why that would be, because I'm told everybody has dreams, they just forget them. But why is it that some people have a better retention for what they dream than others?
I think it's just that some people are naturally more open to these other states of existence and to like questioning reality. Some people don't. Some people are so content in their comfort and physicality that they don't want to question, right? So maybe their brain just filters out those dreams and those other sorts of experiences as a sort of like a safety net.
That's interesting. I like the idea of that kind of safety net being something that could be trained to overcome, but I can also see from a philosophical point of view how if everything that we're ever experiencing is just a thought or imagination or whatever you want to call it, then maybe there's a need for us not to be able to just teleport and fly around and to do whatever we want at first. Maybe the solid reality that we're in, and I've had a conversation with Jules about this before, maybe the solid reality that we're in right now with all the limitations and our limited lifespan at the moment and how fragile we are is there for a certain reason, for us to learn certain things with this, that we don't have the power of gods, thus there's going to be certain lessons we're going to learn. But another thing that I wanted to ask relating to, you mentioned you had a client who had a whole record of their dreams. Do you know approximately how many, and this is kind of a measuring contest that I want to do here, how many dreams did they give you?
So it was like 5 journals, and every journal had probably around 100 dreams or so in it. We still haven't sifted through all of them. This was a very special case, and it was someone we linked up with early on in the project. And it's a person that claims to be able to lucid dream on demand as well. Whether they take a short nap or sleep like 12 hours, they always have these very insane and very intense lucid dreams.
Any particular themes going through these dreams?
They were all over the place, but our very first virtual reality dream experience was built on this client's donations.
And how many years was this in progress for, his dreams?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long they kept the journals, but I know they're still at it, and our project's been going for almost 5 years now. So they're probably close to a decade of documenting their dream stories.
Not bad. That means that I still have a chance of getting a higher score. The reason why I'm saying this is, as Jules knows, I've been keeping a record ever since the fall of 2016 of all the dreams that I've had, and I've calculated it so far today. I have more than 400 dreams that I've recorded in the span of 4 years. And I wrote a couple of the more outstanding ones that I found today that I wanted to share with you.
Okay.
So here we go. The first one. An incident in the classroom which caused me to hide inside of a 100-inch bear. I was at a Buddhist temple, and a well-to-do couple was having breakfast in bed, and there were others on the bed, including me. They shared some with me and others. The food was yellow-colored, and I picked up a piece which reminded me of sea urchin. I was talking with a Tibetan Buddhist monk and asked why the lamas just don't do some of their magic to defeat China. His response was that it had something to do with their mission being to let go of attachment. There was a chest inside which had cow heads with a wooden shell on their face. As I drew my hand closer, one of the heads opened up, and there was a fleshy tongue and mouth inside. The heads may have been attached to bodies, but there were so many heads, I am not sure that there would have been room for bodies. I got into a close relationship with a Chinese girl from the future, like 1,000 years in the future, who attempted to cause chaos by causing the water hose outside my room to start going crazy. And the Chinese girl had equated me to Superman and trapped me, but then Robin Jr. came to the rescue in his jet that turned into a black and red metal dinosaur. So as far as randomness that's going on...
Vivid.
That was amazing. That quality material right there. Our telephone number, Lev, is 267-5308, and we need these dreams.
I'm going to edit all of these later on into a book probably, but I'm definitely going to be sharing a lot of these with you guys as well. One more here about Kanye West. I had a dream that I was going downstairs with Kanye West to a seafood restaurant that serves fish patties inside of burgers. I recall being slightly bemused that he chose this spot as there were better places to eat elsewhere. And then I had another one about these UFOs landing and eating this woman inside of her car. So there were like pieces of the woman's leg and pieces of the car still left over. And then the alien overlords, like their parents, came down and they were kind of scolding them like Leave It to Beaver style. Like they weren't totally mad at them, but they were like, you know, guys, like, why are you wasting time here?
Right.
And yeah, so, you know, fun stuff like that. But the lucid dream that I had, and this is the last thing that I wanted to tell you. So I had a lucid dream where I tried typing in my name, but each time I typed in a new letter, it registered a completely different letter. And then I figured out something weird is going on here. How come I can't type the right letters in? And that's where I figured out, oh, I'm actually dreaming. So I flew around, I looked at myself in the mirror, and instead of seeing myself as I am right now, I saw myself as like this big, slender-looking guy with this yellowish Super Saiyan type hair. And then this wise rabbi wizard guy came to me, and he told me about the nature of evil. And he told me that there are 2 types of evil. The more malevolent type that comes from hatred, and the more light-bringer type that comes from desire. So that would be pretty much any kind of desire any one of us has at any time. Even the love that we show towards other people would still be a desire of getting love in return. And after that, I was visited by two girls who I think may have been prostitutes, one of whom had blue hair and another one who had green hair. And they gave me business cards, which had like goofy looking caricatures of their faces drawn on it. So that was my first lucid dream.
That was your first lucid dream ever?
Yes, ever. Oh, and one more thing about that dream. I tried burrowing underground, and I noticed that it was incomplete. Like, the more I burrowed underground, I said, oh, this part hasn't been created yet, and it was real murky. So I had to get back up. And I was in this wooden room, like some kind of log cabin or something, and that's where I met this rabbi guy.
Wow, so foveated rendering in the middle of your dream state. Time travelers, which is something we're very, very familiar with. This is really quality material. But my question would be, so did you make the choice in this dream to try to burrow?
Yes.
The ground? Yes.
Yes, that was my choice.
It was a lucid choice. Why did you choose to burrow?
I guess I could have gone up, but there was a roof, so I guess I decided to see how else could I get out of this weird wooden room that I happened to be in. I figured that I had a bit of a choice to do something there, so I decided to go for it. But it wasn't the first time I had a dream about Jewish figures, because I happen to be Jewish. So I had another dream about the Jewish philosopher Maimonides, who had a magic ring, but he was drawn like he was projected in 2D. So not in a 3D way. It was like it's like you drew him on a piece of paper, and he made a tunnel. He was burrowing a tunnel with a dog whose tail had a heart shape on it. And when he dug the tunnel, he then cut part of the dog's tails off. And he told the dog that it could use this part to make a new shape it to anything it wanted to. So the dog shaped this cut-off shape into a square, which then turned into a 3-dimensional house that the dog was in, but it became a house of horror. And also there was another philosopher there named Nachmanides, who was a Kabbalist, and he was doing some other stuff there. Oh, and also Maimonides had a magic ring, which was like the magic ring of King Solomon, which was supposed to be used for controlling demons. But anyway, that was...
that was a fable. That wasn't a dream, was it? You were telling us...
Yeah, that was a dream.
That was a dream.
That was an entire dream, yeah.
Excellent. With historical connotation or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wrote a dream that I had recently. So here we go. I had a dream that I was working at a company that my girlfriend was working at. At first, I felt like there was an observer. They were reading roles off of a list. Then my name was called, and I realized I was part of the team. 2 of the other more senior team members in my group seemed to be interested in me. One of them reminded me of the white hair android from Blade Runner. He kept inching towards me with his head or trying to trap my hand. He thought it was weird that I was smiling so much, so I tried to smile less. Then I noticed my front tooth was chipped. I went to a mirror, and I had some kind of exotic jewelry on my face. I put my fingers in my mouth and found some broken glass. I went to the trash and started throwing the broken glass from my mouth into the garbage. Then I discovered there were a lot of metal bars, like metal Q-tips, in my mouth. And I kept pulling them out. It felt endless. And I thought to myself, so this is how David Blaine would do something like this.
Green or magic. Or smoke and mirrors, and it's all an illusion.
This is my dream. Yeah.
You better cut down on the iron.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then I did have another dream that was much shorter, and it was I didn't write this one down, but I'll say it from memory. I was in a cave on the beach, and it reminded me of like a scene from Lost, the TV show with John Locke and Jack or whatever. Only there wasn't. I was one of the characters, and my former business partner was one of the characters. And so he's sitting on a rock or a crate or something on the beach, looking out at the ocean. And I come out of the cave, and I sit down next to him, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Jules, are you the enemy?" And then the dream just ended.
Whoa. That's a little scary.
That was the dream. That was the real dream. He was just looked at me. He was like, "Are you the enemy?" And I was like, "Huh?"
Pretty deep implications to that one.
I don't think anybody's the enemy. I think we all perceive people who are against us politically or whatever to be the enemies, but hopefully with understanding each other more as this internet and this brain connection is going to enable us to do, we'll get there. The only thing I'm still concerned about is thought crimes. Like if you're talking about before about people being able to read each other's thoughts, we are going to have to give a little bit of cut a little bit of slack for people who are like that. Because if you go into people's brains and see what exactly is going on there, I'm sure people who are having a bad day stuck in traffic, they're going to have all kinds of horrible stuff.
Right. And that would bring us back to the Pygmalion effect. And, if we're all interconnected like that, hopefully, if we have that experience of being connected, it will help us start to disengage some of those awful thoughts that we can have, that are like sometimes that are just instinctual. It's something that's just wired into us from our days as hunters and gatherers.
I just hope we don't become Borg robots in the process, though, where we feel like we can't have any spice to life and must always just be on our best behavior. So there's probably going to be a good middle that we can find there.
Yeah, I think so. I'm very optimistic about the future. And
the number that people can call to give their dream to you guys is what? It's
267-53-AWAKE. Which translates to 267-532-9253.
Excellent. The Dream Collection Agency. Kris Pilcher, it was an honor, and I hope to speak to you again real soon.
Me too, Lev. It was great speaking to both of you and you, Jules. And look forward to the future. And keep dreaming.
It was great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.